Okay, what's the word, y'all? Welcome back to another video, man. This is a different type of video, and honestly, it might be the start of these type of videos on my channel. This might be the direction that my channel goes in. I ain't gonna lie, for some reason, I'm nervous to make this video, but we gonna make it. I've been feeling God telling me to make it, so I'm gonna make it. Anyways, man, this video is titled My Testimony from Spirituality to Christianity. So, I'm just gonna be walking y'all through how I kind of like grew up and then how I got into Christianity. So let's get into it. Alright, so basically I'm looking off of stuff on my phone because I got a whole lot of notes because I want to, stay on track. My testimony has been something that's kind of like, it's over my whole life, but it really takes a turn in March 2020. So I wanted to give y'all that as a heads up first and foremost. But in order for y'all to like really understand my testimony, I feel like I got to take y'all back. So we're going to go back to how I grew up. So basically I grew up believing in what you can call, like practicing what you can call spirituality, and I guess like it's hard to understand that because it's a lot of different definitions of that, especially nowadays, and it's a lot of different ways that people practice that. So for me, I grew up like learning about a lot of different ancient African spiritual systems, or spiritual, I think they call spiritual systems or something like that, and grew up learning about those and whatnot. And I kind of just grew up learning that like religion was like not even an option. It was all like any type of religion was to kind of like limit you or just control you or like kind of put you in a box and whatnot. I grew up there like more so being in tune with your spirit and being in tune with your ancestors and stuff like that was like the true answer. At one point I was praying to a sun god called Ra. It was a sun god of Egypt. I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken, I was praying to that God at one point, and then at another point, I believed that the universe, like the whole universe was God. And then at another point, I read this book called 3 Magic Words, and I believed that I myself was God, and that anybody, like every other person, was also God. Everybody was God and just a different expression of God, and that was like my true belief at one point. But me like kind of bouncing around from these different things kind of had me always had me confused on who God was, and it kind of like just made me feel like I wasn't really in tune with the true God. And every time I used to pray, I always grew up praying, so I used to pray a lot. I just always felt like I never really knew who I was praying to, and I never really knew if who I was praying to was listening. I never really saw my prayers getting answered for real. And even actually I got to take y'all back even further. So my mom, when I was like younger, my mom was very into Christianity. So I kind of grew up going to church for like a couple of years of my life and whatnot, but not a long time. And so that's kind of how I got into the habit of praying, was just because my mom was like big into Christianity. She was big into praying, and so she used to pray every single night before we would go to sleep. She would pray for me and my sister and whatnot. And so that's kind of how I was just always in the habit of praying, because that was just something I grew up on. But eventually I kind of got taken out of Christianity and was, introduced to different ideas and different beliefs and whatnot. And okay, so like I said, I kind of was just always confused on who God was, and I want to tell y'all why I never really gave Jesus a shot. And that was because I was really just raised to not believe in Jesus. Yeah, I was raised to not believe Jesus. I was raised to not believe that he was God. I was raised to believe that, Jesus was like either like a fictional character or somebody who might have really lived at one point. But they took a story and used that to manipulate people and gain control over people. That's kind of like just what I always grew up on and like was just kind of taught. So that's why I never really gave him a shot, was because like I never believed in him to begin with. Like he was never really an option for me, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like a background on how I grew up and like the different things I believed in growing up, and also what my relationship with Jesus was growing up, which it was non-existent basically, you know what I mean? So skip back into March 2020. It's about what, 2 years and some change ago. Basically I had started smoking a lot during March of 2020, and the type of highs that I would get, it was just like super weird. Like I don't really want to go into depth. Well, I'll go into depth. Basically, like when I would get high, I just felt like anything I touched kind of felt like it was pixelated. I don't know if this is gonna make sense to anybody, because I don't know too many people who've experienced it. I've only talked to one other person that said they felt the same way. But like I would touch something and it would feel like just pixelated. You know what I mean? Or like imagine, everybody know what Minecraft stuff looks like. So like imagine touching a mine, like imagine actually touching a Minecraft object. Everything felt like that to me, right, when I would get high. I didn't really like the feeling, but usually I'd go to sleep, wake up, and that feeling would be gone. I'll still be high, but that little pixelation feeling would go away. Until one day I ate an edible, and then it did not kick in until the next day. And then once it kicked in, that little the pixelated feeling came back, and it was stuck. Like I literally had it for a week straight. It was from Sunday to Sunday. I had it for a week straight. And so during that whole week, I was just like extremely anxious about it. Like I was extremely worried about it. And then I've always kind of been like an overthinker. So I was overthinking the mess out of that second. Like I'm thinking like my nerves is just bad and my nerves gonna shut down or something like that. And I mess around and just die out the blue. You know what I mean? So like this is a recurring thought 24/7 for a whole week straight. I guess like I was extremely paranoid and everything, right? After that week, after those feelings that stopped, like the little pixelation feelings that stopped, the thoughts didn't necessarily stop. I feel like that week I kind of like opened up something in my brain that allowed me to just go into a dark place of thinking and like just an extreme paranoia and like anxious state. And I didn't really know how to get rid of it. And I also didn't talk to nobody about it too. So like I wasn't really getting no help with it because nobody knew about it, because I chose not to talk to nobody about it, right? And so this was something that kind of like lasted, because I ended up smoking a couple more times that summer, like maybe 2 or 3 more times that summer. The same thing happened. Like the little pixelation feeling happened, and it would stay with me for like a couple days and whatnot. I'll get super paranoid again, and you know, so I was like I was tripping. I was really reinforcing that whole thought process on myself again. You know what I mean? Those feelings didn't go away. The anxious thoughts didn't go away. The dark thoughts didn't go away. I don't really want to go too much into that stuff, but just know like they stuck with me. Even though the high feeling was gone, like I said, I just feel like I opened up something in my brain that allowed me to like go into that dark place, you know? So skip to college. So I start college August of 2020, my freshman year, and I'm still, you know, getting those like just those, having those episodes every now and then, but it's not as prevalent. Like it's not as frequent. So skip to college, right? So I meet my homie Sterling. Met my homie Sterling. It was probably like the first week of school. We both was walking outside at night, and like we literally just like intersected into each other and gave each other like a little head nod and whatnot. And then we ended up walking in the same direction. So we was just talking the whole night. And so that's how we had met. Maybe like a week later, or maybe even a couple days later, he had told me about this group. He was like, hey bro, it's like a group of black dudes that's supposed to just meet up and literally just like talk about stuff, like just talk about college stuff, talk about girls and whatnot. He was like, it's supposed to be like once a week or something like that. You trying to go? I'm like, shoot, say less. Like I might as well, you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to still meet more people, and like keep in mind this is during COVID. Like COVID is heavy this year. Like this is literally 2020, you know what I'm saying? So like it's hard to meet people on campus because you're not really seeing them out where people will usually be at on campus. So I was like, yeah, like why not? And I'm gonna be meeting more black people too, why not? We both go. He gets there before me. He gets there a little bit earlier than I do, but I come and I show up a little bit late and whatnot. And so when I sit down, there's this dude named Austin that's leading the whole meeting, right? So I'm like, this is a little weird, because I'm just thinking, you know, people are just gonna be talking. I ain't know it's gonna be like a leader of this, like it's gonna be somebody kind of orchestrating this conversation. And so when I sit down, he asked me, he's like, hey, what are some qualities of a wife? Like, what do you think are some qualities of a wife? And I'm like, okay, so we having deep conversations. This is what this is, you know what I mean? We having deep conversations. And so I just like, I forgot what I said, but I listed off some conversations and whatnot. And then after that, he's like, okay, that's valid. And he's like, okay, so let's go ahead and look into the word and see what God says are qualities of a wife. And so right then, immediately, I knew that this was like a group of, this is basically like a Christian, some type of Christian group. And he was gonna be talking like, you know, talking about God and whatnot. Like, don't get it twisted, we were still having conversations and everything, but it was more so like a group for like, I felt like it was dang near like a mini version of a Bible study, basically. And so, like I said, I've always been turned off of the idea of Jesus, like my whole life, literally. I went to a Catholic school for 3 years, Catholic high school for 3 years. During that whole 3 years, I did not believe in Jesus. I was turned off of the whole idea of Jesus and whatnot. And so once I found out that group was more so like a Christian group, I really just stopped going. Like they had them every single week that whole semester, and I probably went to like maybe 2 or 3 of them just to show up, you know what I mean? And like it wasn't really something I was interested in. But I'm saying that because, you know, letting y'all know like where seeds was planted at, you feel me? So now that was like kind of towards the beginning of the semester. So now we're gonna skip to 2021. So we're gonna skip to the next semester basically. So at the beginning of 2021, I started, I made some goals, right? So I made like, you know, you do your New Year's resolutions and everything. So I made those and I wrote them down because I actually wanted to like stick by them this year. I was like, you know what, I wrote some goals in 2020 and I did my best to stick by those. So I was like, I'm gonna write some goals in 2021. I'm gonna do my best to stick by those. And I did the same thing for 2022. Like I told y'all, I had always been confused on the idea of who God was and whatnot. Like I never really knew who he was. I always felt like I was just kind of like lost in that space, even though I'd been introduced to a lot of different ideas and to a lot of different, you know, practices and whatnot. I always just felt like that disconnect. And so my goal for 2021, I had 3 goals. One of them was to build good credit. The other one was to get 50,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube, and then the last one was to get closer to God. And so when I write my goals, I also write like action steps to actually like get to those goals, you know what I mean? Because it's one thing to like have a goal and see it, but it's another thing to have a goal and actually have a plan to get to it. And so I kind of write out like different little things that I'm gonna do to make sure I accomplish that goal. And so for the one, for the goal that I said getting closer to God, I said I'm gonna do research. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna just continue to pray that God reveals himself to me. Because I'd already been praying that for a long time, like God just reveal yourself to me, especially like when I was going through them episodes of just, you know, the super anxiety and the, you know, paranoia and all that, and sparks of depression and everything. Like when I was going through that, I was really praying for it. And so I was like, I'm gonna continue to just pray that God reveals himself to me. I'm gonna do research. And the last goal or the last action step, I said I'm gonna be open. I'm gonna be open-minded. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? If God reveals himself to me and it happens to be Jesus, I'm gonna accept. I'm gonna take it. I'm not going to run from it no more. I'm gonna just accept it. You know what I mean? Now I was saying that, and even though I said that, I was still turned off from the idea of Jesus. But I guess I was like more so like, I was like, okay, if I get some super proof or something like that, like it's gonna have to be like the best proof in the world, then I'm gonna take it. Then I might take it, dang near. You know what I mean? So kind of fast forward a little bit now into, this is still January, but we're back at school, so this has to be after like January 18th, because we don't get back to school until around that time. And so I'm in my dorm, and my roommate, I had a roommate the semester before, but he had moved out, so now I'm in my dorm by myself and it's just me. I don't know what it was, but I randomly just started kind of getting like an anxiety attack dang there. And I felt, the thing about him was that I got him so frequently during that summer of 2020, and also like during the last semester, I'll get him just not as frequently. I'll get them like maybe once a week or twice a week or something like that, which is still pretty frequent, but you know, it wasn't as frequent as during the summer. It was every day, like it was nonstop. And so yeah, so I was getting like randomly started getting like a little anxiety attack and whatnot. I was so familiar with them that I kind of knew which ones was gonna be bad and which ones was not gonna be as bad. Like, okay, this would probably pass over in a little bit, and which ones was like, okay, no, like this gonna last through the whole night, and like I'm gonna be dang near in my head going crazy, you know what I mean? And so I was like, at that time, I'm like, bro, like I don't not want to feel this junk no more. Like I had been over feeling that, but at the time I'm like, bro, like it's a whole new year, you know what I mean? Like I thought this was going to just stop in 2020. No, it's a whole new year. It's 2021. I'm not trying to feel this. I'm not trying to carry this into this year. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna pray, and I'm gonna pray to Jesus. And I prayed. I was in my bed, and I prayed, and I said, Jesus. I basically made a deal. I said, Jesus, if you get me through this night, I will stop denying you. That's what I said. That was my prayer, and I promise you, bro, that like as soon as I open my eyes from that prayer, my body like, cause I got this when I get those like episodes of just like super anxiety or whatnot, or like just or depression or just like super paranoia, whatever it would start off with this feeling in my stomach, and then like for some, like it would go to my head would get hot and whatnot, and then the thoughts is just running, like, you know what I mean? So the feeling started off in my stomach, so that's how I knew it was coming. So right as I opened my eyes, like it was just gone, like the feeling was just gone, my head was clear, and I was Gucci, like I was feeling happy dang near, you know what I mean? I went over to, that night I went over to my homie Sterling and Justin's dorm, and I kicked it with them for a little bit because I wasn't really trying to be by myself that whole night. So I kicked it with them for a little bit, and I felt the feeling come back for like a split second, maybe 10 to 15 seconds max. and then it was gone again, and then like I was good for like literally the rest of the night. And for y'all to like really understand the significance of this, like I said, but like this was going, I could tell when it was gonna be a bad trip and when it was gonna be a decent trip. And I tell you, like, that was gonna be a bad trip if it hadn't got stopped. And it wasn't like, and for it to just stop and not come back basically for the whole night, that was something that had never happened for real. You know what I mean? So it was just like, okay, this is why, like, something was up. You know what I mean? And so at that time, I was also practicing like being a man of my word. Like, I really was starting to take that a lot more serious, because I wanted my word to like really have some weight to it. And so when I said that prayer, like, Jesus, if you get me through this night, I would stop denying you, I was like dead serious. Like, I said that with the intention of like really being a man of my word. And so after that, I started reading the Bible a lot more. I started praying to God and praying to Jesus. Yeah, I would say more specifically, I was praying to Jesus. That's why I said Jesus, because I always believed in a God, but I never believed in Jesus, right? And so that's the reason why I really never even knew God, because if you don't know Jesus, you don't know God. You know what I mean? That's why when I did that prayer, I said Jesus, though. I didn't say God, because I already been praying so much to God, like during that whole time frame. Like, that's what I forgot to tell you. My bad. This is all over the place. But like during that whole time frame, like the summer 2020, like, you know, even the my first semester of college and whatnot, I've been praying my butt off to like to just get healed. You know what I mean? I was going out in nature, I was sun gazing, I was meditating. My family was like into the crystals and whatnot. They never really worked for me. So, but I tried them out. They wasn't really working for me. But moral of the story, I was trying a whole lot of stuff and nothing was working. You know what I mean? Like, at all. Like, some stuff, like, it'll kind of like, it might give me a good feeling for a little bit and kind of like pause stuff for maybe a couple hours. But bro, like, nothing was giving me like substantial, like real progress. You know what I'm saying? So for that to like, so that's why it was so significant for me, like, to do that prayer, and then I'm good for the rest of the night, because that had not happened up until that point, right? Okay, and one thing I also want to say about that prayer is I said, Jesus, I'll stop denying you. And the reason I said I'll stop denying you was because I literally had felt myself, I've been denying him like my whole life. Basically, I always felt Jesus kind of tugging and pulling at me from like, and that comes from, you know, Bible studies like that, me going to a Catholic school and whatnot. And, you know, we take classes about theology and we learn about Jesus and everything. And even though it wasn't necessarily Catholic school that was pulling me in, it was more so like different pieces of information that we learned about Jesus that was kind of like tugging at me and whatnot. Honestly, like all the way back to when I was like young, I forgot how old I was, but I don't think I started school yet. And it was during a Christmas one year. I guess this is like kind of a story that, you know, your family tells you because you can't really remember it that well because you were so young. But I guess like I had like hearing problems. I couldn't really hear that well. And so one Christmas, I found out, I learned that the reason we celebrate Christmas is like it's supposed to be a celebration for Jesus' birthday. Although Jesus was not really born on, like, he wasn't really born on December 25th. That's just when, you know, people decided to celebrate it. But it was crazy because when I asked my mama, I said, Mama, Christmas is for Jesus' birthday? She said, yeah. And so I think after that, I went in my room for a little bit, and my mom had called my name or something like that, or somebody had called my name, and they said I ran out the room and I was yelling that I could hear. I said, Mama, I can hear, something like that. And so like that lets me know, I guess I really couldn't hear. But it was crazy because, you know, I found out some information about Jesus, and then my ears was healed. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know if that's clicking or not, but like I said, Jesus has just always been tugging and pulling at me my whole life. He's always been present. And that's something that's something I realized and was like, that's why I said I'll stop denying you, because I've been denying him my whole life, basically, you know? So during this time that I was like learning, like reading more in the Bible and just learning more about Jesus and kind of learning like some history on Christianity and whatnot, I had been praying a lot that Jesus would just help me to get through my disbelief. Because you got to remember, like I said, I grew up and was like taught, I was basically taught not to believe in Jesus, you know what I mean, for over a decade, basically. So I feel like that type of, like that kind of has a hold on you, you know what I mean, and it's kind of hard to like just let go of it or like get through it. And so I just I had to pray a lot and a lot and a lot for Jesus to like really like just get rid of that disbelief for me, because I was really having a hard time. Like I always believed in God, but I was just having a hard time believing in Jesus and believing that Jesus was God, believing that Jesus died and rose from the dead, believe you know, just believing a whole bunch of stuff about Jesus. So I'm like, Jesus, like, please just help me get rid of this disbelief. What I didn't realize was that by me praying like that, and that by me also just reading the word more and trying to, you know, do God's will, I was living out a verse in the Bible. The verse is John 7:16-17. I'm gonna read it to y'all right quick. To give y'all some background, basically Jesus is finna teach at a festival. Like he's finna get up at a festival and just, you know, teach the word. During this, people was in the crowd kind of talking about Jesus, and it says in John 7:12, some people, it said, among the crowds there was widespread whispering about him. Some said he was a good man, others said no, he deceives people. But no one would say anything publicly about him for fear of the leaders. So basically they was talking to the crowd, and like people were saying, oh no, he a good dude, he a good man and whatnot. And then other people were saying, no, like he's a deceiver, he deceives people. And mind you, that's what I grew up on. I grew up that not only Christianity but all religion was something that was like meant to like deceive people and basically like be mind control over people. That's what I grew up on, right? So in verses 16-17, Jesus talks and he says, my teaching is not my own. It comes from the one who sent me. Anyone who chooses to do the will of God will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. So basically right there, Jesus says, if you choose to do the will of God, if you choose, like I'm teaching you what the will of God is, but if you choose to do that, you're going to see if that will is actually from God or if that's from me. And what Jesus says after this kind of helps you understand even more. He says, whoever speaks on their own does so to gain personal glory, but he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him. So he says, whoever speaks on their own does so to gain personal glory. So basically what Jesus is saying is that if you choose to do the will of God, you're going to see whether this is really the will of God or whether I'm just speaking to gain personal glory. You're going to see if I'm speaking to try to deceive you, basically. You know what I mean? So basically you're just saying like, you do the will of God, eventually you're going to find out like, no, this is the true God and this is really his will. You know what I mean? And so that's why I said like I was continuing to read the Bible and continuing to pray and continuing to try to submit to his will. And I didn't do it perfectly at all. Don't get it twisted. I was not perfect in doing it, but I was trying. And eventually, that became true for me. I found out like, yeah, this is the true God. This is really the will of God. And I'll say like the main reason was because the more and more I got into the word, the more and more I try to give my life to God and give my life to Christ, I could feel that anxiety and that depression I was going through and all that, like all that darkness, I can kind of just feel it like fading away. It was not nearly as strong. It wasn't nearly as present. It was not nearly as frequent. You know what I mean? And that still holds true to this day. And so I guess that was something for me, was just like feeling that peace was something that kind of confirmed like, okay, I'm on the right path right now. Even though I had my disbelief, it was like, okay, this is like, you know, we own to something right now. I'm on the right path, you know. Hopefully that makes sense. That's basically how I got into, you know, Christianity and whatnot. And for the longest time I was holding back on becoming saved, because I really wanted to know what I was doing, and I wanted to have an understanding of who Jesus was, and I wanted to actually be able to say that I believed in Jesus. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I was still praying for Jesus to get rid of that disbelief. I'm gonna just go to Romans right now. And so like in Romans 10 verse 9, it says, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And so that was kind of like biting it. That was kind of like tugging at me, basically, because I'm like, okay, I want to be saved, but when I do it, I really want to truly, like, I want to have more belief than disbelief. You know what I mean? And so I was really just waiting to get to that point. And I was praying that like God would give me time to get to that point, because at the same time, we don't know when we're going to leave this earth. So I was praying like, God, please just give me some time to get to that point. You know what I mean? In October of 2021, from January to October, what's October, the 10th month? So it's like 9 months later, 10 months later, however you want to say it. October 2021, I went ahead and confessed with my mouth and believed in my heart that Jesus is Lord. You know what I mean? I said it out loud. I was sitting on my bed in my dorm room. I just said it out loud and I prayed it out loud. And I truly believed it in my heart. I still had disbelief, sprinkles of doubt. So like I said, I still had sprinkles of doubt and like a little bit of disbelief, a tad bit. Well, not even a tad bit. It was about a nice amount, but nothing like, I had a lot more belief than I did disbelief, you know what I mean? And I trusted that God would take me out of that disbelief, you know what I mean? The reason I was able to like really, you know, get saved in that moment was because deep down I truly believed like, no, like Jesus is God, you know what I mean? Jesus is Lord. He was sent to this earth. He died on the cross. He rose 3 days later. He saved humanity. You know what I mean? Like I really truly deep down believed in that. And so I feel like that was why I was able to go ahead and, you know, confess it out loud, you know what I mean? So that's really my whole testimony. I guess like kind of fast forward to now and like after, you know, being saved and whatnot and kind of how life is. I've still been continuing to just grow my relationship with Christ a lot. And it's crazy because like I feel like now where I'm at from even from when I got saved, it's like it's dramatically different. Like it's not different, but like dramatically, it's just my relationship has like increased a lot. The more and more I grow in Christ, like the more and more that relationship like just matures and gets better and better and better. You know what I mean? And the more and more like I understand who God is, and the more confident I am in my beliefs. And one thing that was always hard for me was like just keeping faith and just maintaining faith. And so that's been something that I've been building, especially over like the last month. It's been building a lot, you know what I mean? And so I'm happy, joyful. I still had, you know, moments of, you know, getting into those dark places, but it was a lot different because one, I knew and felt God was with me and he would get me out of those moments pretty quickly. And two, what I'm realizing more and more now is that whenever I get into those moments, those are really the times when I kind of get away from God. And so it's like, okay, the closer I am to God, then the farther away I am from those feelings, you know what I mean? And so hopefully this was encouraging for people and it wasn't confusing because I know I was bouncing all over the place, but I was here and then I was here and then I was here and then I was here. But the thing about me is like I don't talk a whole lot unless it's to people that I'm like close with, unless it's to my close friends or it's like my family. Even my family, like I talk to them, but my mom knows it best. Like I have my moments where I'm talkative and then I have my moments where I'm quiet and I do not want to let a word come out. I don't even want to open my mouth. I don't know why, I'm just like that. So whenever I get to like really just talking and I'm able to just talk, I just let it all out and I don't really have a direct order of how I'm going to let it out, you know what I mean? And so it can come off confusing because I'm bouncing from this point, then I remember this point, so I got to say that too, you know what I mean? So hopefully this testimony was just, it met the bare minimum of being understandable, hopefully. And hopefully it helps some people. Hopefully it's relatable for some people. Yeah, man, hopefully God uses this video to glorify himself. So that's really all I got to say, man. I appreciate y'all for watching this video. Y'all can expect some more videos and more content about God to come out. Yeah. All that being said, man, we out. Peace.